Welcome to Scaling with People, your weekly playbook for turning chaos into compounding growth. Each week, we go under the hood with battle-tested experts in all areas of business, from marketing to sales, operation, finance, and people, plus product and leadership, to unpack the plays, numbers, and systems that turn chaos into compounding growth. Learn straight from founders and experts who've done it and continue to do it successfully. There's zero fluff, just moves that you can steal immediately. This podcast is brought to you by Guide to HR, human expertise, AI-powered impact. Welcome, everyone, to today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm Guinevere Curry, your host, founder and CEO to Guide to HR. Okay, today's guest isn't just riding the AI wave. He's building a tsunami. Ben Johnson, serial technical founder and CEO of Particle 41, has turned recruiting and other areas into a precision sports, fully AI-enabled to uncover the best talent on the planet. We'll also dig into how his practice squad turns elite engineers into world-class impact players and why leadership in tech is less about managing code. And here you go. Hold on, folks. More about unlocking human potential. So get ready for the playbook that's part Silicon Valley, part NFL draft, 100% built to win. Well, I'm excited to get started, dive into all of this. Welcome, Ben, to the podcast. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Like you had mentioned, I'm a serial technical co-founder, so I've helped several businesses start to exit, and then really I created my own brand to do that for many others. So I'm the CEO of Particle 41. We've launched over 94 products into market, and we love helping people accelerate their software, cloud, and data projects.
I love that. That's such a mirroring of what I love to help people accelerate their growth through people operations. So we're doing exactly the same thing, but in different spaces that business need both of us, right?
That's right.
So Ben, you've taken AI recruiting and we're going to talk about a little bit HR here before we get into too much tech because I am dying to learn from you on the AI recruiting side because there's so much talk from different founders and AI experts that AI has solved recruiting. I personally have yet to see that, but you're telling me that you've learned how to take AI from the buzz to actual a business weapon. So what
Yeah.
does this fully look like in practice?
Yeah, so if you really think about the global recruiting market, we're a global company, so we have teammates in India and South America, Argentina, Brazil. Like we want to find the best talent in whatever market so that we can bring that to our US based clients. And so in those markets and in the US right now, you get a lot of applications per week. We see when we put
Mhm.
out a new role, we see about 500 applicants a week. So the idea of having a human review all those applications is just
Yeah,
not practical,
overwhelming.
overwhelming. So we
Mhm.
wrote an AI-enabled resume scoring tool. And it's not magic. It just gives us a score of how well the job description matched the resume. And so those two are brought together with AI. And for example, if we are looking for a data engineer with modern cloud skills, I saw an applicant that had 20 years of experience, but that was in SAP data services, not
Mhm.
it's so totally different than what we're
Yeah.
trying to do. Highly unlikely that candidate would be successful in that role. So we only push forward or interact with people who do an 85% or better. And I'm sure folks will start gaming this a little bit. They'll start
Yeah.
redrafting their resume to match
I
job
can tell you
descriptions.
it's already happening.
Oh, I'm sure. And that would be fine. So we added a second AI enabled layer, which is an assessment layer. And so even for office skilled workers, non-coder type roles, every role has an assessment. So even in say a like a non-technical role, maybe an admin or somebody in finance, there are assessments that I can give them to really figure out if they're right for the role. Even a typing assessment or some personality questions. And so we have an AI tool. We use CoderByte primarily to run our assessments, and that's an AI-enabled tool that detects cheating. So it detects if they're just, answering all the questions with AI, or they're
Mm.
bouncing back and forth to do research, or are the fairly simple questions that the assessment is asking, can they do those on the fly? Because that's who we need to have in our company.
Yeah.
And then if they pass the assessment, then the recruiter is notified, and she starts setting up an internal candidacy where the team can talk to their practice leaders and get to know some people in the company. And then we take those candidates very seriously. Those are people we really want to talk to and get to know and continue to evaluate.
I love it. So, just to recap, basically using AI agents assessments to get through the resumes. And then, if they're 85% or higher, then it automatically triggers this actual test assessment sent to the candidate. They complete it based off of that score. Then it triggers the recruiter to say, hey, pay attention to this candidate.
Yeah. Yeah. We even have some recovery emails that if they did try the assessment, but were bouncing around and, just not taking it seriously, we do have an email that goes out and says, hey, no, we take this assessment really seriously. If you pass this assessment, we're really incentivized to talk with you. And so just short of a guarantee, like if you take your time and do the assessment well, that you're the candidate that we want to talk to.
Yeah, I love that. And so, kind of like sidebar question here for you. You're tech, I'm HR, kind of combination, right? How are you ensuring your assessments and your AI functionality is staying ethical and not actually pulling out people that might be discriminated against through the AI?
So we know exactly the prompt that we've given it. Um, we are in an interesting market in those. So if I were using this at scale in the US, I might have to do a little bit of extra work. But in foreign markets, we're talking about at least fairly singular race categories. Now there is so we don't have any extra bias or any. We are strictly looking at years of experience and their match. So I think that the AI actually helps.
Yeah.
If a human is going through each resume and their job is to get anything out, like really their job is to exclude because they just simply can't spend the time or send a bunch of candidates into our internal employees that are trying to do client work. So we
Right.
have to be really efficient. And
Exactly.
so I think that the bias would come in if that, at least that initial screening wasn't being done fairly systematically.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're looking at the skill set, the years of experience, and then, the assessment, and then it gets into the human interaction and engagement.
Yeah, we have a lot of objective data before we're spending any time on subjective decisions.
I love that. That's awesome. What any other tips or tricks in the recruiting front? Because obviously, between the candidates using AI, companies using AI, trying to move faster, trying to find the top candidates, everyone wants to know how to make AI be their superpower when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah, no, I think really the secret for recruiting is outside of the tool. It's, so I use an EOS principle of really understanding my accountability chart. And I think as leaders, we need to go spend some time, not with the people names, but just with the roles and responsibilities of each seat. So
Yes.
think of an org chart looking thing, but instead of names, it has the roles and responsibilities on there. It's really saying like this seat is for this to cover this thing, like finance or HR or recruiting or whatever it is. And then the outcomes that the business wants from that person is clearly defined on here. Then as you go to do your hiring, you know what you're hiring for. And I
Hmm.
also find that my current folks understand the fullness of the role that they were assigned to do. And most people should feel a little bit of like, wow, this role is kind of bigger than what I'm currently filling. I need to increase my capacity to fill these edges. And so we create the accountability chart to just be really clear how we're engineering the team.
I love that because usually when I'm working with a founder and we're talking about restructure, that's exactly what I tell them to do. We're going to take the names out. I don't care about Bobby, Stacy, Nancy, whoever, right? It's what is it that we need from the for the org to be successful, and then build out what are the capabilities and skills, what are they going to accomplish, and then we can look at the current employees and start plugging and playing and seeing where our gaps are and seeing who's left on the list that might no longer be a good fit for us, which is always a challenge. But if you do it with the names in play, then you're just trying to slate people in that is not really what you might need as your for your business.
That's right. And you can limit that the amount of restructuring that you have to do in your company's life cycle. I know peers of mine, they're working for large organizations and they feel like every 6 months there's a reorg.
Oh
And
gosh,
and that's kind of
painful.
indicative of not having the right people in leadership and then rotating them often kind of creates that constant need
Hmm.
to reorganize. And I think just being really clear, we not only have the accountability chart, but we also have some supplemental seat placement documents. So for every role, there's a clear one pager on like, here's all the outcomes that are expected of you. And then that establishes our whole like staffing and management plan.
I love that. Well, let's switch gears. I kind of queued up NFL, and if anyone knows me, they know I love my football team. You tell me a little bit about this practice squad you put into place. What is it, and what is it really doing for you?
Yeah, so we recognized that when COVID happened and we went to a remote organization, that the company started to feel very transactional.
Hmm.
And so we wanted to pull people back and help them to connect. So in practices that were like 12 people or less, we could like a practice, for example, is our design team or our cloud team or our data team. But in software development, we just had too many people for that. They were
Yeah,
all so what we did is we broke them into smaller squads. And some practices just are of a size where they can be a squad. And in those instances, we wanted people who were working with many clients, not a heavy concentration, where a client team and a squad were the same thing. So
makes
we
sense.
wanted to create a little bit of diversity there. And so if I'm an employee at Particle 41, I have the client team that I'm engaged in. Some people might have multiple clients that they're engaged in, but most people have one. And then I have my squad. And my squad are like my homies. And so we've given them a curriculum, yeah, basically a discussion experience that goes on throughout the year. And there's some personal development stuff involved in there, some personality testing, some top five strengths. What's your primal question is a good piece of content. And so we just interwork our personal and professional development in through the squad program. So our hope is that the squad becomes close, remotely close, but the squad becomes close and gets to know each other on a personal level, and that they can also use that content and curriculum as a means of some professional and personal development, really get some value out of it.
Yeah, and have some people who are peers and mentors that they can go to when they're stuck and or need someone to kind of, water cooler conversation that we don't get it when we're working remote, right?
Yeah, that's our hope. So when we do events, we organize them in squads. It's just a ready-made group of usually about 8 people, and they every 6 months they appoint like a moderator, and they go through some meetings. Just about 90 minutes a month is the requirement there. Some of them probably reduced down to an hour, but we just want people to come together at least 90 minutes a month and not just talk about the problems that they're solving, but talk about what it means to be a professional, what it means to be a human being, um, trying to keep up with their faith, their family, their fitness, their finance, like all of that, which work is just, a part of.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love that. And when did you implement this?
So we've been running this for about a year.
Okay. So have you
Yeah.
gotten any feedback about what your employees like about it or?
I would say it's mixed, predominantly positive. Some folks, some folks they just love the grind, right? And
Or they're
and they're
introverts.
yeah.
I mean, you're
So
talking
there's
about engineers, so I'm like, how is this going to work with generally oh, excuse me. Ugh, cut that out, Melvin. But generally, engineers are introverts.
so, but our engineers aren't just engineers; they are consultants.
Oh, yes,
And
that
so
makes
we want
sense.
to bring that out. I have a personal belief that introversion is a bit of a mask. So I get that we're kind of classifying people as introverts and extroverts, and there's some body of work that's done that. But I really want to encourage people that even if they um, are more hands-on, that they speak up for themselves and they speak up for their work.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And giving them the space to get more comfortable doing so hopefully grows their confidence so that they can actually do it with clients, with you, whoever else is in the conversation.
Yeah, I haven't met too many folks that would call them introverts that really sink into that, that their personal life is not also struggling with that really like deep introversion. So I
Yeah.
think it's good to encourage folks, and it's very noticeable to the clients and the
Oh,
fit
sure.
in the culture of engaging with clients.
Yeah. So you talked about building teams that deliver at a global scale. What's the biggest leadership shift you've seen to unlock the most elite performance that you can get from all these people around the world?
Yeah, so it comes down to like a heavy degree of communication, and then we've done some things in a remote digital workplace that bring information up. So we really talk about, hey, how are we going to report status? Okay, cool. Client needs to get weekly status reports. We also use Slack and Teams for our client engagements. And so there's this idea of making every day count, that everybody should hear from everybody at least once a day. And so that could be just simple as like, hey, this is what I'm really focused on today. And when I finish that, I'm going to move on to this next thing. And then of course coming together in meetings and stuff. But we've really been able to minimize the amount of meetings, increase the amount of flexibility by structuring the way people give information and just giving them kind of a platform to work in. And that's really improved. I mean, even our leadership team does it. We all want to articulate our focus for the day, our focus for the week, and so we've really structured communication in that way. And I think that that's what works. If you can't feel the people you're working with, then you're naturally going to have this assumption that they're not doing anything,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and so we just want to we want to have a structure in our working standard that eliminates that fear.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I do think it's great to over communicate, and set those structures and boundaries and understand kind of like what is happening so that your customers are knowing what is going to get done or if something got behind, why and when they can anticipate a new deadline to be delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really want to work shoulder to shoulder with our clients. So just having that daily flow of communication is really important.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm curious, what's one mistake that you've seen founders, maybe yourself even, make when they're building technical teams? Let me rephrase that. How can they fix any mistakes before it becomes a big cost and maybe time consuming too?
Um, in what area? Just in working with offshore, or just re-ask your question, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So Melvin cut all of that off. What's a mistake that you've seen or maybe you've experienced when you're building out your tech teams, whether it's global or internal, but your engineers, the product designers, what have you learned from that? And maybe even if you could go back and tell yourself, don't do this, it'll fix the problem and you won't have so much cost and time lost.
Yeah, I think it's just being really clear on what you feel like the user experience. So we have a really great design team, and we find that the clients that really invest in the design, they also clarify a lot of their own questions. How are we gonna price this? What's the actual product? And I also think that there's a really good narrowing on the MVP, the minimum set of features that you can start engaging with customers on. Um, in software, in product development, um, you really want to be clear on what you're supposed to build. Like, what is it that we need to build? And sometimes in that design process, you realize that there are things that you could buy that might get you there faster. So
Hmm.
every business is going to do build, buy, or partner. And just making the right decisions in that, I find that the things that are closest to the customer, the actual customer's experience, are the things to spend the most time building and customizing. And if those things can sit inside of a CRM or a set of tools, great. However, I found most businesses grow out of limiting tool sets in the customer engagement layer, and that's where they want to start investing in whatever it is, a mobile app or a portal or some sort of software, and that's where we come in and help. So being really clear on what that thing is just helps move quickly. The other thing in this topic is, especially with AI, you need to be really clear on your standard operating processes before you go start to talk to AI consultants. So most people are like going to AI consultants right now and they're just saying, give me more of the AI. And that's a
Hmm.
very expensive way to do it. If you go through your SOPs, go ahead and give your customers access to, or your internal employees access to ChatGPT
Yeah,
and
yeah.
start talking about how they're orchestrating like data coming out of emails, going into ChatGPT, what outputs they're creating, and start talking about those individual use cases. Because what they're likely doing is they're taking your SOPs, your ways of doing things, and then they're getting AI involved in those things.
Right.
And documenting that is like for me, it's almost like looking down the scope of a gun, and I can be very precise on the type of project that we're trying to target, and I can keep the costs very low.
Yeah.
But if we're
Yeah.
kind of all over the place and we're like, well, we just need more of the AI, well then there's some consulting that needs to happen, a lot of
Hmm.
discussion. I need to do that documentation for you, and so
Hmm.
you're going to pay for that additional those additional CPU cycles of some human brains.
Yeah.
Um, doesn't mean we can't produce things quickly. Like I'm using Gamma AI would be my or Gamma.app, really great tool for producing PowerPoint presentations.
Oh, nice. I love that. Yeah, I find some of the clients I'm working with, they have the SOPs, but they haven't been touched for like a year or two. And I mean, I've even gotten into someone like, you don't have lever anymore. You don't have, whatever
Sure,
tool you have. I'm like, okay, we have to, I mean, so they might have it, but also like, when was the last time you updated this, right? So
that's right.
making sure it's the most updated. And also too, just because that's the SOP you have today doesn't mean that that's actually going to be what's right for the business tomorrow. And if you just throw AI on it, it's not actually solving the problem. So understanding too what the root cause is before you throw technology and even people at it, right? Like you got to
Yeah.
understand what does good look like? What's the end result? And then go from there.
Yeah, so what we've experimented with is we come in a lot of organizations that are at that exact stage. So what this is really, so not having SOPs or having out of date SOPs is a perfect use case for them to go try ChatGPT, like or Claude or something. Like, okay, go upload your current SOPs,
Yeah.
tell it what you're doing differently, have it spit out a new SOP and see if it's right. And a lot of times for depending on the comfort of your workforce, that's a very eye-opening experience. Like, wow, okay, yeah, it's spitting out
Hmm.
our SOPs. All right, cool. Now, is there anything? So now, as they start to adopt AI more manually, you can start helping them move to. We can start helping them move to an automated workflow.
I love that. I'd actually add on too, once they've gone through that prompt, taking that SOP and saying, how should I actually improve this? Where can I
Sure.
make changes? What am I missing? Right? Because as humans, like we build SOP, we build things based off of our own experience, and our experiences might be all at small companies, might be at nonprofits, might be at, manufacturing, and now they're at a retail shop, right? So taking into consideration that we human beings have limited experience, seeing what ChatGPT or any AI has to say about like, oh, well, have you thought about adding this step? Or maybe if you change this to that step or do it before this one, it'll enhance the experience.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's a great. I'm just saying, like, be precise, aim small, miss small is my general guidance around anything right now. Is that the smaller you can aim, the more precise. Like our recruiting
Yeah,
AI solution is very targeted. Like the amount of work we did was really small, refined, and it solved the problem.
I
It's
love that.
rather
Yeah,
than what we're seeing in the market,
yeah.
which is just give me more of the AI, and there's a lot of
Mm.
overspending.
Right. And two, if you're working on adoption internally and the buy-in from your employee population, who might be just scared of the change, who doesn't like change in the first place, potentially, if you just do something small and they see, oh, okay, that made my life easier. I'm still here. Everything's good. Then you can just kind of keep adding on to that instead of like trying to have them. What I say is, you're trying to have your employees be an ant trying to swallow a whole hamburger at one bite. Like that's not how it works. You gotta have little tiny bites, make sure they're successful and people are buying in and wanting, and then what I've seen is that then more information comes forward about other processes and other SOPs and other ways that we can incorporate that employees are excited about and want to be a part of.
Yeah. With any kind of automation, looking at your incentives and making sure that folks are incentivized on total output, including what the automation does, but also you're stressing with them that they're responsible for quality still. And
Hmm.
so what that does is it says, oh, well, if we're able to do if the new automation, whether it's AI or whatever, if the new automation works better for us, we're still incentivized based on total output. And we're going to tell you everything that's wrong with that thing because we're responsible for the quality. And this is a great, this is a great culture where they're heavily engaged in testing everything and making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do and giving feedback so that you can make the automation better and better. And then at the end of the day, we're all in it together because they're incentivized on total output.
That is so awesome. I love that. And there's a lot we could talk about there. But as we wrap up today, is there any last final tips, tricks, tools, or words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
So my one piece of pointed advice is a cybersecurity piece of advice, and that's
Mhm.
never use the same password for more than one system. And so we shouldn't be using the same password. So I'm a big advocate of like Bitwarden or LastPass or 1Password or password keeper of choice. But
Mhm.
having something that's responsible for really just having a different login for every system is going to keep you very safe. So if you do have an issue, it's really easy to recover from.
Yeah, and I feel like with AI, there's probably more hacking going on and more success towards that, right?
Yeah, well, I just got back from DEF CON 33, which is a hacking conference. I took my son last week,
Oh, fun.
which will probably date the episode a little bit, um, but yeah, it is, AI is getting involved in both the security side and the offensive side. But just a
Hmm.
general rule of thumb, if your exposure is limited to one account, you're in
Yeah,
good shape.
yeah.
And the reality is that if you do use the same password across multiple platforms, that infection will happen in seconds. So
And
because
probably while you're
they'll
sleeping.
yeah, well, because they'll be able to test with that password, they'll be able to test all kinds of accounts
Yeah,
within
yeah.
seconds. So yeah, just keep
Crazy.
yourself safe. It's just a general safety tip.
I love that. Well, thank you, Ben. It was great meeting you and having you on today's call. Thank you for letting me geek out with you on AI, especially on the recruiting and HR front. For those
Sure.
that are listening, I hope you got some good tidbits and good ideas. And Ben's contact information will be in the description below. So if you want to reach out and further the conversation, please do so. And until the next podcast, we hope that you have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us. That's a wrap for today's episode of Scaling with People. If you got value from this conversation, do me a favor, share it with someone building something big. And hey, I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment, shoot me a message, or start a conversation. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the bold, unfiltered strategies we drop every week. I'm Guinevere Query, founder and CEO of Guide to HR, where we help high growth companies scale smart with people first strategies and AI powered systems that don't just keep up, they lead. If you're building fast and want your HR to move faster, head to guidetohr.com and let's talk. And remember, scale isn't just about speed, it's about people. Until next time, have a great one.